A billionaire brings a black woman to his sister's wedding. Then the groom suddenly drops to his knees and calls her boss. A black dress stands out among the jewels, and laughter rings out like shattered crystal. Did she come from the kitchen loud enough to humiliate while pretending it was accidental? Eyes slide over her hair, her skin and the seams of her dress stamping a label on her does not belong. She stands upright. Her silence is not weakness. It is the last shield in a room that measures people by labels. Music rises, the vows begin, and at the height of perfection the groom falters as if remembering how to breathe. He steps down from the dais, walks past the white gown, and kneels before the woman they mocked. His voice catches, but every word lands like a hammer. "You saved my life, boss." The air turns rigid. Fingers resting on glasses tremble with shame. No one has yet named. Smiles harden into masks. Are you curious about what happens next? If you are subscribed to the channel and watch until the end. Silence holds, then it breaks into threads of whisper. The chandelier glows over the Mercer Pavilion. Beside her stands Grant Mercer, heir to Mercer Holdings. His jaw is tight. His hand rises, then falls. He grew up under these lights. He knows how this room judges. At the head table sits Evelyn Mercer. Her chin lifts a fraction. Control wrapped in pearls. Vivian Mercer smiles with social polish. The eyes stay cool. Aunt Portia leans to a friend. Her whisper is made to travel. Screens wake like cold stars. Adrian Park still kneels shaken by truth he could not carry alone. At the back, Harlan Mercer watches. The patriarch sits straight with a cane by his knee. He built much of what these walls display. He remembers cost before shine. His gaze weighs character, not cloth. The crowd begins to sort itself. Loyalists cluster. Doubters hover. Cruelty tries new angles and then retreats. Grant steps closer. "I'm here," he says low. It is not a shield, but it is true. She meets his eyes. Breath steadies. Dignity holds. Around that one fact, the room resets its masks and waits for what comes next. Questions rise like steam. Who is she? Why the word boss? Why would a groom kneel? The answers are simple and not simple. She is Naomi Vale, once the quiet force behind Vale and Quill Capital. She disliked cameras. She read footnotes. She funded teams that others dismissed. She asked how a product kept a roof in place. She valued use over shine. One of those teams belonged to Adrian Park. His runway was ash. His hope was thin. Her diligence cut through noise and panic. She rode a bridge that carried his company to morning. Payroll cleared. A launch happened. A life did not collapse. He did not forget. 3 years ago, Naomi stepped away. No press, no farewell. She chose a small apartment and mornings with sun and paper. She chose not to perform wealth. Power can shout. Power can also go still and exact. This ballroom was built to crown victories. It was also built to hide debts of respect. Tonight, a debt speaks its name. The question shifts in the crowd. Not who is she, but who are we if we never saw her standing here? The noise thickens, then thins in her memory. North Beach. A bell over a door. Bay and Bindery. Paper breathes there. Dust hangs in a soft beam. Shelves lean like old friends. The window seat holds the afternoon and lets it linger. Here she learned to lower her shoulders again. She used the same chair. A small notebook, a black pen. Mr. Whitaker runs the shop with patient hands. He sets aside dog-eared paperbacks like saved seeds. He keeps a pencil ledger only he reads. He remembers what people love before they ask. Time widens in that room. Coffee cools in a chipped mug. A line can be read twice and mean two true things. No boards, no cameras, no slogans. Just pages and breath and the slow work of coming back to oneself. She carries that refuge inside the ballroom now. It is the opposite of Nob Hill. It is the opposite of a family name in gold. The memory steadies her spine. The cold air cannot reach what the bookshop keeps safe. She stands. She breathes. The crowd tries to decide what dignity is worth. 6 months earlier, rain drifted in from the bay. The sidewalk shone and dimmed. A man ducked through that same door and paused. Grant Mercer had escaped a meeting he did not want. The storm gave cover. The shop gave calm. He saw her before she saw him. A faded Columbia sweater. A paperback on post-colonial African economics. A face at rest inside a page. He walked an aisle and pretended to browse. She looked up and smiled. The room warmed by a single degree. He asked what she was reading. She told him. Then asked what he was hungry for. Not food. Ideas. He said he was not sure. She said start with the index and follow the footnotes. They sat by the window. They spoke of cities and small stores and working hands. Names came later. He did not mention Mercer Holdings. She did not mention Vail and Quill Capital. He left with 2 paperbacks and a quiet ache. The bell rang behind him. Rain kept falling. Something had begun that no ledger could price. He came back the next day, and the next. The chair by the window became a ritual. They traded pages and questions. He learned how silence could be full. She learned how a listener can make a room feel larger. They walked North Beach after closing. They mapped small shops by memory. They named the streets that held them together. He never said Mercer Holdings. She never said Vail and Quill Capital. The choices felt clean. 2 weeks later, she proposed a road trip. Not Paris, not Napa. A drive through the South to visit Black-owned bookstores. He said yes before he understood why. They followed highways and side roads. They drank bitter coffee in paper cups. They met owners who kept their towns alive with paper and light. In each store, she asked about rent and margins and slow months. He watched her care about numbers like they were people. In a motel with thin walls, they laughed at nothing and everything. He slept through for the first time in months. When they drove back over the bridge, the city looked gentler. The feeling between them had edges now. It also had depth. The road ended, but the quiet stayed for a while. A quiet Sunday morning, a small apartment, sun pressed through sheer curtains. A phone buzzed on the table and would not stop. He turned it over. Evelyn Mercer on the screen. He answered. "Brunch today," she said. "Your sister has news. Bring your friend." The tone left no room to refuse. He looked at her and winced. "We can say no," he said. She shook her head. "We were always going to meet them," she said. "Better now." They dressed without fuss. He tied a simple tie. She chose a clean blouse and a calm face. On the ride over, he explained the rules he grew up with. Announcements dressed as kindness. Invitations that are orders. Smiles that end a conversation. He apologized for the world she was about to enter. She told him to keep both hands on the wheel. The gates opened on cue. The drive curved through old trees and perfect lawns. The house rose like a verdict. He parked and let out a breath he did not know he was holding. She nodded once. They walked in together. The terrace was a painting. White linen, crystal. A city view that asked to be admired. Evelyn Mercer stood at the head as if the table were a board. Vivian Mercer already glowed with news. The air smelled like citrus and control. He said their names and kept his voice steady. She offered a clear hello. A server gestured toward the far end. There, he said, as if it were neutral. The seat sat a breath outside the family circle. She took it without comment. He chose the chair beside her and felt the shift. Questions found her. "What does your family do? Where did you study? Such a surprise you love economics. What a unique look." The compliments landed with a sting. She answered with facts and short sentences. She did not return the implied favor. Aunt Portia leaned across the cloth. "It's all so different," she said, "but lovely." The word different sat on the table like a stain. Harlan Mercer arrived late and quiet. He took a seat where he could see everyone. He met her eyes for a second. Something like thought moved behind his stare. Dessert was announced. Relief did not follow. The cake arrived in perfect layers. The knives shone. Vivian tapped a spoon to glass and smiled wide. "I have news," she said. "We're engaged." The table erupted on cue. Hands reached for her ring. Voices overlapped with plans and names. The future sounded like a press release. A small pause opened. Evelyn turned to the end of the table. "What will you wear to the wedding?" she asked. "These events have a standard." The tone was sweet. The edge was visible. "I'll find something appropriate," she said. "Of course," Evelyn said, "if you need guidance." The conversation moved on without her. She took a slow sip of water. He saw it all and went still. A cousin asked if she had ever been to the Mercer Pavilion. Another guest called her features exotic. The word pressed on her skin like a thumb. She did not break. She did not raise her voice. "I'm proud of my heritage," she said. The table paused, then resumed with new caution. He reached for her hand under the cloth. She let him take it. It steadied him more than it steadied her. Evening brought quiet back. For a moment, a text arrived from an unknown number. It began with exclamation points and ended with links. Designer gowns. More links. "So, you don't feel out of place," it said. The sender signed Vivian. She read it twice. She read the translation in her head. "You do not belong. Wear this costume and we might pretend." She typed a reply that fit in one breath. "Thank you for thinking of me. I have my own style. I will keep your suggestions in mind." She hit send. The phone buzzed again. She turned it face down. He read the thread and went dark. His voice rose before he stood. He called his sister and did not look at her while he spoke. He paced. He defended. He demanded. He hung up and stared at the floor. She put a hand on his wrist. "You cannot fix this in one call," she said. "I know," he said, "but I won't let it slide." He meant it. She believed him. The room felt smaller. The gap between what he knew and what she lived stayed where it was. Night settles like a lid. The apartment is quiet enough to hear the clock. She opens the closet and stares into a row of lives. Silk that once knew cameras. Suits that carried boardrooms. Hangers hold the weight of a past she left behind. She pulls a garment bag from the back. The zipper slides. A gown spills light like water. It fits the rules. It would end the whispers before they begin. It would also surrender the argument. She sets it aside. Another bag. Another emblem. Each one is a language she no longer wants to speak. She breathes. The room feels wider when she lets them go. Her hand finds a simple black dress. No label to announce, no armor to perform, just clean lines and fabric that moves when she moves. She holds it up and feels the answer arrive. On the dresser sits a small photo of her father. His eyes hold a kind of quiet that does not bargain. She smooths the dress across the bed. The decision is not flashy. It is final. Tomorrow will test it. She does not plan to blink. The ballroom at the Mercer Pavilion gleams like a verdict. Marble floors hold their own chill. Mirrors make the crowd look larger than it is. Strings climb the air in practiced waves and settle on crystal. She steps inside with Grant Mercer. He offers his arm. She takes it for balance, not cover. The staff assess without staring. They have learned to do both. The room does not speak, but it measures. Evelyn Mercer stands near the entrance, polished as a statue. She greets donors and dignitaries with the same half-smile. Vivian Mercer moves like a brand in heels. She scans for angles and allies. Aunt Portia drifts toward a cluster already whispering. He leans in. "We can leave," he says. "We can leave whenever you say." She shakes her head. "We came to witness," she says. "We came to stand." The phrasing steadies him. It steadies her, too. Lights soften, voices lower. The ceremony calls the crowd toward their seats. The air tightens by a degree. She keeps her back straight. The dress holds its line. The room takes note, then resumes the test. They close the distance with grace and calculation. Evelyn arrives first. Her eyes sweep and file. "Minimalist," she says. "Very brave." The words smile. The tone does not. Vivian steps in almost warm. "You must be exhausted," she says. These events are a lot if you're not used to them. She touches the hem as if it asked a question, stunning in its simplicity. A server passes. Glasses chime. The compliment lands like frost. Aunt Portia leans toward a friend whose pearls cannot hide her stare. So striking, she murmurs. So different. The last word is a thorn pressed gently against skin. Laughter follows in a whisper that travels farther than it should. Phones tilt, then reset. A cousin asks where she studied. Another asks what her family does. Each inquiry is a sieve, catching only what can be ranked. She answers with clear facts and short lines. She offers no decoration. She returns no apology. The smiles stretch. The distance holds. The room adjusts its mask and looks for the next soft place to press. He shifts at her side, ready to cut in. She grazes his sleeve with 2 fingers. Not yet. She turns back with a steady breath. "Thank you," she says. "I like what I'm wearing." The sentence is small and complete. It leaves no seam to pull. Eyes blink. A pause opens. She does not fill it. "I'm proud of my heritage," she adds, even softer. It is not defiance. It is a boundary. It lands, then stays. Evelyn recalculates in silence. Vivian studies the floor as if the pattern changed. Aunt Portia tilts her head and chooses a new subject. The sting they were serving loses its edge. It tastes like water now. He exhales. The breath sounds loud to him. She hears it and lets her hand fall back to her side. Her posture returns to neutral. Her eyes remain bright but calm. Around them the chatter rises again with a cautious note. A string of laughter erupts across the room and dies too fast. Acceptance does not arrive. Open hostility does not either. What remains is a friction that cannot be smoothed by charm. An usher appears with a practiced smile. "Right this way," he says. The route looks ordinary until it does not. Rows for family curve toward the front. Their path veers gently off the arc. He gestures to a neat pair of seats among business allies and distant friends. The placement is surgical. It says, "Welcome." It also says, "Not us." He starts to object. She takes her seat first. The argument collapses without words. From here, the altar looks farther than it should. The music covers small talk with velvet. The crowd settles into categories they did not name out loud. She slows her breath and studies the room. On one side, donors who built small empires and learned to smile with teeth. On another, faces from press and politics. Near the front, a cluster of relatives turn toward the aisle like sunflowers. She rests her hands on her knees. The fabric lies smooth. The choice she made in the closet holds. He sits beside her, restless and still. The lights dim a shade. The opening notes of the ceremony ask for silence. She gives it without surrender. The first chords hush the room. The officiant speaks. The words move in a warm, practiced line. Adrian Park stands at the altar, perfect on paper, not at ease. A small tick starts in his jaw. His smile holds for the cameras. His eyes do not. He glances down the aisle. Once. Twice. Then again, as if searching for air. Vivian Mercer glides toward him in a cloud of white. Applause rises in a polite wave. He turns to meet her, but his gaze slips past the veil and keeps going. It drifts over donors and cousins and friends of the brand. It stops where it should not. It lands on Naomi Vale. The distance is real and not real. He blinks as if memory is finally catching up. She does not move. She meets the look and gives nothing away. Grant Mercer feels the shift before he sees it. He leans in without speaking. His hand finds the armrest and grips. The vows resume. The room exhales. A beat later, the silence tightens again. Adrian's eyes return to Naomi and stay there. A line in the ceremony shakes. Something under all the polish begins to crack. The crack becomes sound near the doors. A photographer argues with security. The voice carries by design. "Press," he says. "Public interest." He is steered toward the exit. He raises it another notch. "I have a witness," he says. A woman at table 47 was called the help. The sentence lands like a dropped plate. Heads turn. Phones lift. The orchestra falters, then pushes forward. Evelyn Mercer rises a fraction and smooths the air with her hand. Vivian pauses on the steps. Her smile loosens at the edges, then fixes. Grant stands before he thinks. "No," he says. "Absolutely not." The usher tries to soothe. The photographer resists and points to the back. A few guests slip out already on their screens. A hashtag forms in the glow. The crowd senses heat. The room tries to pretend it is only light. Naomi keeps her seat. Her jaw sets. She has heard this word in other rooms, other lives. She breathes in and counts to 3. Across the aisle, Adrian watches her and looks stricken. The officiant clears his throat. The script is still in his hand. The story no longer is. A microphone waits near the front. Evelyn reaches it with a smile that strains. "There has been a misunderstanding," she says. "Our family values inclusion." The statement sits on the air like a card held too long. Grant turns to Naomi. "We can go," he whispers. "Say the word." She shakes her head once. "We're not leaving the truth behind," she says. The choice steadies her spine. It unknots something in her chest. She stands. Chairs shift in a small wave. She steps into the aisle and moves forward at a calm pace. The space parts as if unsure whether to resist or welcome. The officiant lowers his binder. Vivian freezes, then watches with bright, cold eyes. Harlan Mercer does not move. His face changes in a way only the old can manage, less visible, more complete. Naomi reaches the first row and faces the room. No one speaks. Phones lower by a fraction. She gathers one breath. She lets it out without tremor. "I would like to answer your question," she says. "Not the one you asked, the one you implied." Silence holds the respectful kind. It has been missing all night. "My name is Naomi Vale," she says. "I led Vale and Quill Capital for years." A ripple passes through the guests who read business pages between flights. A donor whispers a date. A CFO mutters a number. The sound dies fast. I stepped away. 3 years ago, she continues. I wanted air. I wanted mornings that were not a war. She does not raise her voice. She does not bargain with it. I wrote checks when others wrote off entire lives. I funded teams that kept roofs over families and lights on in clinics. I did it quietly. I did it because it mattered. Grant's hands are still now. He looks at her like a man in a church. Adrian's eyes gloss with memory. Evelyn's posture insists on calm and gives away strain. Vivian's mouth holds a line that could cut or curve. Harlan's gaze sharpens as if a file has touched steel. Naomi lets another breath settle. You asked who I am, she says. The better question is why you needed a title before you could find basic respect. She does not pace. She lays the facts down like stones. You sent me links to designer gowns, she says, looking toward the family row without pointing. You called it guidance. The message was simple. Wear the costume or you do not belong. You set our seats away from the family, she continues. A polite no man's land. That was not logistics. That was a boundary. You called me exotic, she says to the cluster that will not meet her eyes. As if I were a display. As if distance were flattery. And somewhere in this room, she adds, someone decided to call me the help. I honor help. I honor the people who keep places like this from falling apart. But you meant it to subtract me. Her voice stays even. The words do the work. If you did not know my name, respect was still due, she says. Not because of a resume. Because I am a person. The room absorbs that like heat. Phones lower, breaths change shape. On the dais, the officiant closes the book. For the first time all night, the light feels honest. The room is out of places to hide. Movement breaks the hush. Adrian Park steps down from the dais, the aisle opening under his shoes. He stops before her and bows his head. Not a gesture for cameras, a gesture for debt. When he looks up, his voice is raw, but sure. 5 years ago, he says my company was dying. The room leans in. We were out of cash. 2 weeks from layoffs. I had emailed 200 firms. I heard nothing but no. He swallows. Then Vail and Quill Capital called. They were the only ones who didn't ask for a pitch deck first. They asked for truth. He turns so the room can hear every word. She didn't ask me for a favor. She asked me to build something real. When I walked away tonight, I forgot where my courage came from. He drops to one knee. Tears stand but do not fall. You saved my life. Boss, he says again, softer now. The words strike deeper the second time. Gasps ripple. A few hands lower their phones. A few people look at the floor. Gratitude has a way of clearing smoke. The air feels different. A cane taps once on marble. The sound is small and absolute. Harlan Mercer rises from the back row. The crowd parts without moving. He walks down the side, every step careful but sure, and stops near the aisle close enough that no one can pretend not to hear. I know that name, he says, eyes on her, but he lets it hang there. 42 years ago, I was a young man in Lagos. I made a foolish deal with dangerous men. When it collapsed, they did not send lawyers. They came themselves. He glances at Evelyn and Vivian, then back to Naomi. A stranger hid me. He bargained for my life. He put me on a plane when I had no right to hope. His chin lifts. His name was Joseph Vail. A whisper of shock moves through the front rows and dies out. I have repaid many debts, he says. This one outran me. He looks at Naomi and bows his head a fraction, and here I find his daughter, treated as less than, in a house my mistakes helped build. The shame in his voice is the kind no one can spin. He turns to the family row. His gaze is steady. We forgot what it cost to build the name on those doors, Harlan says. We forgot the hands that held us up when we slipped. He faces the room again. This is not a misunderstanding. This is a mirror. Evelyn Mercer holds her posture. Father, she begins. He lifts a hand. The room hears the years in that gesture. Enough, he says. We will not dress cruelty as custom. He looks back to Naomi. On behalf of this family, he says, I am sorry. It is simple. It is not small. He bows his head slightly and the act has weight. Murmurs shift. The tone changes from spectacle to reckoning. Vivian stares at the floor still as a statue with a crack. Grant Mercer does not move. His eyes shine, the way eyes shine when a truth rearranges a life. Harlan rests his cane against the pew. Names matter, he says, but character matters more. He nods once as if signing something binding. Let this room remember that. The silence that follows is clean for the first time tonight. She does not step back. She meets the clean silence and speaks into it. My father taught me a test, she says. Wealth without character is only decorated poverty. The room does not flinch, so she continues. I left because rooms like this asked me to shrink. I was the only one like me over, and the rules never fit. She is calm. The words carry without strain. I am tired of code switching to earn the basics. Tired of watching average pass as excellence while excellence is treated as a risk. A few faces change color. She lets the sentence land. I am not here to impress you, she says. I am here to be seen as a person, not a headline, not a diversity win. A person who loves books and coffee and quiet mornings and who worked hard in the rooms that did not love her back. She draws a breath. Respect is not a perk, she says. It is the floor. The line settles in the bones. Near the front, the officiant closes his binder and steps aside. For once, ceremony yields to meaning. It feels like the real service has begun. She lets the last words settle. Respect is the floor. Then she turns to Grant Mercer. The crowd feels the shift and goes still. His throat tightens. He looks like a man who knows what he wants to say and how much it might cost. I hid my resume, she says quietly. I needed to know if you could love the person, not the portfolio. He nods once. He does not look away. You did, she adds. You do. The truth of it loosens something in his shoulders. But loving me is not just feeling, she goes on. It is work. There will be more rooms like this, more jokes dressed as help, more doors that open for you and close for me. Can you stand beside me when it is not easy? Can you learn? Can you listen? His eyes shine. He lets the questions hang and steps into them. I can, he says. The words are low, but they hold. I choose you. And I choose what is right even when it costs. He turns toward the front of the room. He does not sit back down. The silence around them tightens, waiting for the next voice to move. The room holds its breath again. Harlan Mercer steps forward one pace. His cane stays still. His voice is plain. There will be changes, he says. Eyes rise across the rows. Effective now, Evelyn is removed from the board of Mercer Holdings. The sentence lands with a clean, heavy sound. Evelyn's lips part, then close. Her poise does not save her from color. He turns to Vivian. Your trust is suspended for 1 year, he says. You will spend that year in service, not on a panel, in the work. Find an organization and learn its name by the dirt under your nails. Vivian swallows. The smile leaves without a trace. He faces the guests. We do not call this a misunderstanding, he says. We call it a correction. A murmur rises and breaks. Aunt Portia finds her pearls and holds them as if they can speak for her. They cannot. Harlan looks back to Naomi Vale. We lost the plot, he says. We will write another one. It is not a plea. It is a line drawn. The room adjusts to a new shape. Pride loses its echo. Consequence finds its voice. The aisle opens again. Adrian Park turns from the altar and faces Vivian. The ring on his finger feels colder than the room. He speaks in a voice made for meetings, then lets it soften. I need time, he says. Not to weigh optics, to weigh values. Vivian stands very still. Her hands hover as if the air might help. This is a moment, she says. It can be fixed. He shakes his head. It can be understood, or it can be hidden. I do not want the second. He looks at Naomi. Thank you, he says. It is quiet and complete. He slides the ring from his finger and sets it on the altar cloth. It does not make a sound. The silence does the work instead. He steps down and walks the aisle without escort. People part like water finding its path. Phones lower. A few whisper his name and then stop. He reaches the doors and pauses long enough to breathe. Outside, the night is cooler. He chooses it. The ceremony stands without a groom. Image has met its limit. The truth keeps going. Grant Mercer unlocks his phone. The screen lights his face. He types without hurry. He deletes one sentence. He writes another that costs more. He presses post. The words go out to millions with his family name stitched to them. Tonight, I watched someone I love get diminished by people who should have known better, it reads. If you are in my life, you will treat her with respect. If you cannot step out, this includes family. This includes business. Dignity is the line. The notifications arrive like rain. Some pledge support, some threaten fallout. He lets them pass. He turns the phone screen down and breathes. There will be calls, he says. I will take them. He looks at Naomi. I will not bend. The room has thinned. Donors make exits in quiet pairs. The orchestra plays softer as if mourning the script. Evelyn sits like a statue carved 1 inch too tight. Harlan leans on his cane and does not look away. Naomi nods once. The post changes nothing about her worth. It changes something about who stands beside it. They leave together into the cool, salt air. The car ride is a hush they both need. The city slides by in sheets of light and shadow. He drives toward North Beach without asking. She does not need to. The bell above Bay and Bindery answers their knock like a friend who was not asleep after all. Mr. Whitaker opens the door in a cardigan and a smile that asks no questions. He steps aside. "Take your time," he says. The shop smells like paper and rain. The window seat waits as if it knew the hour. They sit across from each other and let their shoulders fall. He brings 2 chipped mugs and sets them down. He returns to the back room. The quiet expands, then holds. She takes the first sip and closes her eyes. He watches her come back into herself, breath by breath. They speak in short lines. Fathers and debts. Names and costs. The way a place can hand you your own face. He says he is sorry again. She says she knows. The shop keeps their words safe. The city outside keeps moving. Inside, something repairs. Dawn lifts the edges of the shelves. Dust turns to gold in the first light. She leans back and lets the glow warm her hands. Sleep would be easy now. Peace is easier. She thinks of her father, Joseph Vale, and the test he left behind. Wealth with character. Or poverty dressed up. She looks at Grant Mercer. He looks back and does not look away. "I am tired of shrinking," she says. "So we will not," he answers. The line is simple. It is enough for morning. She stands and walks the aisles once. She touches a spine and leaves it where it is. She does not need to carry proof. She is done asking rooms for permission. Dignity is not a pitch, it is the floor. For those who watched with her tonight, she has one ask. Hold the line where you stand. See the person, not the packaging. Share this story if it helped you breathe. Follow for the chapters that still wait, not fairy tales, real ones. The kind where love does not fix a world but steadies your feet while you do. And if you want more stories that speak to strength, truth, and the quiet fight for dignity, hit subscribe. Stay with us for the next story.